Hello, everyone. Adam here from Three Count Radio, and today I have LWF's resident monster, and I'm rather terrified myself. We have the God of War, Bellateus. How you doing, my friend?
Hello, yeah, it's nice to finally be on. I've been waiting for you to ask me for a while. We've been talking about it non-stop, and today's
I've
the
been terrified.
day.
Rather scary, man.
No, not always, not always.
He's a gentle giant at soul. What have you been up to anyway, mate?
Not much, just working at the moment, doing lots of work. I've just got back into work actually. Been searching for a new job for a while. I'm looking to retrain
Oh,
in the career that I'm looking at like switching career, but I'm doing some supply work. I'm a supply teacher at the moment, and just using that as a sort of stopgap before I do this new course in September.
oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Quite productive for you then.
Yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks. Yeah, getting back into the swing of things. On top of the training and everything. Every Thursday I go. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been busy, but I'm enjoying it.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Um, let's jump right into it. What was it that? Because I always like to get into the mindset of certain of different wrestlers because we all have our different stories, don't we?
hmm
What was it that inspired you to don the tights and get into the ring?
Initially it was whilst I was at university. I have a younger brother. He's 7.5 years younger than me, so obviously and he's completely different to me, like physically. I'm tall. He's like not as tall as I am. I'm quite a large guy. He's very thin. We're completely different, and there's not much in terms of like things that we have in common. And
Mhm.
so wrestling was the one thing which we really had in common. And he'd been to see an LWF show whilst I was at university,
Okay.
and they advertised the academy. And he asked if he was too young to go, but they took a shot on him and let him go. And since then, he decided that actually like performing wasn't for him. He's still a fan; he comes to the shows, but he decided that performing wasn't for him. But and actually, taking part wasn't for him. But I went with him to a couple of sessions before he'd made that call, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So I've stayed on, and now he's one of my biggest fans from the audience.
It's it's a bug, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and I completely understand why it wasn't for him. His passions lie elsewhere now. But I really do think that there's something in it for everybody, and I think the fact that he's still a big fan of it, even if he's not taking part, he's got a busy schedule and everything now. He's at college and things like that, so he just doesn't have the time. But there's something there for everybody, and you're so right. It is addictive. There is a bug that you catch there. Yeah.
Yeah, there really is. And I was actually talking to my mum about this earlier. About we were talking about WWE, then we transitioned to WF and the Indies,
Mhm.
and there's something about the Indies that just makes it the close knit nature of it just makes it feel so special.
I think as well, it's funny actually, I was speaking about this the other day as well. I think that like obviously when you look at wrestling at the top level, those guys are like, they're on a pedestal. The mainstream celebrities now, which is brilliant for wrestling and it's
Oh yeah,
brilliant for the indies. But I think there's something so special about seeing, you know, people that you'd pass by on the street going up there and being these athletes and being these larger than life wrestlers. I think there's something so magic about that in the indies, and I think that's where that really comes from.
yeah, 100%, 100%. So you can, as you say, you can get to know these people and you know them as people,
hmm
but then you sit and go to a show and watch them in the ring, and it's something very, very different. That when because you know the lovely people, absolutely amazing people, but then they get in the ring, it's just something a switch, and I don't know, the word magic. It's all that can come to mind. It is just magic. It's a bug. It's addictive.
Absolutely, I agree, and I think that it doesn't matter which side of the ring that you're on. Obviously, I know you dabble with the LWF. You know, you've done some interview work and things like that. So obviously you've sort of seen both sides of the curtain. But
Yeah.
whether or not you're an audience member or whether or not you're somebody who's getting in that ring, it is magic and there is a bug. You're quite right, and I think that's where the magic of the indies comes from, is that you're both buying in on that magic. You know, you're both believing in that magic. You're both partaking in that, no matter which side of the curtain you're on. It's magic for everybody in there, and I think that's what makes these atmospheres at these venues.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
You've got a, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, of course, you've got a drama background, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing major, but I've
Mm.
always had an interest in drama. At school, I was always the first to like audition for the school productions and things like that. I did Bugsy Malone in year 11. I was Bugsy, um, of course. I wasn't going to settle for anything less. No, no. But you know, I've always had a thing for drama, and I studied it at A level. Um, and I've always had such a passion for it. But I've also had a passion for sort of impact sports and things like that. And I
Okay.
think that wrestling's a really, really interesting meld of the two, because obviously, you know, there's the persona and the character, you know, this being larger than life, but also what you're doing is really, really high impact stuff. And I think that that's something that people try and take away from wrestling far too often. But as soon as people come and give it a go, they soon realize that that yeah, that ring's not as, it's not a trampoline as many people think. It does
Oh.
does hurt when you go on there. So yeah, it combines two of my biggest passions in life, and it really is sort of made for somebody like me, definitely.
Mhm. Massively, yeah. Massively. I remember doing roles in training, and when I first couldn't quite do them, yeah, I was flipping rather than rolling, so I'd
Hmm.
land on my lower back.
Yeah,
Oh, oh my
that's not
God.
fun.
No,
No.
it's not. Not at all. I remember doing a backwards roll and I bumped instead of doing the roll. Now I struggled like properly bumping.
Mhm.
And Sam Bailey looked at me and went, "You didn't roll. That's the best bump I've seen you do."
So you just, if you were going to take a bump, you just have to roll through on every bump and take that bump. Yeah.
It's you are correct. It isn't sponge, it isn't a trampoline.
No,
That shit hurts.
it does. It does hurt. It does.
Um, do you think that interest and experience and background of drama, do you think that helped in terms of performing in front of a crowd and getting the cognitive mentality of theatre and impact sports in one package?
Definitely. Yeah. I think that it really has helped me. I mean, everybody gets nervous, but
Mhm.
obviously that first sort of debut and going in front of the crowd, I was more nervous for the wrestling and the actual moves I had to execute rather than just being out there in front of a crowd. I'd done that before.
Yeah,
So I was still really, really nervous, don't get me wrong. And I'm always nervous being in front of a crowd, but that wasn't the bit that was the most nerve wracking to me. And it still isn't to this day. I know for a lot of the lads it is. And I completely understand why, but I've just sort of grown up just doing that really. So that definitely helped. That took some of that load off when I'm debuting or when I'm anywhere really, when I'm performing. That takes that edge off of that. But also, yeah, I think when you're acting, you have to sort of have it second nature. You know, you're remembering lines, for example, if you're
yeah,
doing a show, and so the character's got to be second nature, because the last thing you want to be doing when you're acting is trying to remember to be in character and trying to remember your lines. One of them's got to give, and if you're remembering your lines, you've got to be in character just as is. And so, sort of being comfortable with being in somebody else's shoes, being in a different character's shoes, is going to be a really big help if you're wrestling. But you can do it without. You know, it's a skill that can be learned. It's a skill that can be refined. It's not a necessity to come into wrestling by any means. But I do think that helped me in some ways. Yeah.
yeah. That's fair. That's a great answer. And I look at because I've been watching the Indies for a while. Um, and it's when you look at people, it's very. I use Leah Raven a lot as an example because she's making waves at the moment. She's doing
Hmm.
fantastic. But she's someone who's got her gimmick and character nailed to a T.
Hmm.
And sometimes people can struggle with that. And for me, trying to figure out and try to think of something for myself, because as you said, I've dabbled in interviewing and things like that. I do plan on
Mm.
taking that further on muting the shows.
Brilliant.
Um, it's one thing I'm not like thinking, trying to think of different things. It can be difficult. It can be quite challenging to try and think of the thing that you are comfortable with. But as with yourself, as with the Raven, it's something getting the character down early is very special because
Yeah.
then it's just because like, you're going to be practicing the wrestling. That's part and parcel. You're
Yeah.
going to be training, but character's difficult to like translate to the fans.
Yeah, definitely. And I applaud somebody like Leah Raven as well, because I think you look at Leah and she could take that character absolutely anywhere. She could go in a number of different directions, and she's gone in a brilliant direction, and she's doing it so well.
Yeah,
I've worked with Leah before, so I'm very familiar with that character. And you know, she's refined that down so well, and the best parts of her shine through in that character that she's taken. But I think, like, you know, she could take that anywhere. With me, it kind of fell into place a little bit more naturally. I
oh
think
yeah,
when you're a 6'5" guy of my size, you can't come in and do some. Not all avenues are open, shall we say? There's some that you probably should look at first, and certainly that's what's happened with me. And I've just been so fortunate to sort of fit into this character, and there have been things that have refined and changed over the years with it. You know, I've been doing this character now for 4 years, and it was hard to find a voice. I do love to talk, you know, I love to act, but it was hard to find a voice for this character. Would it lose its impact if he spoke? And that's still something I'm figuring out now. And you know, it's just about taking risks and seeing what works. I mean, you know, if you try something and it doesn't work, realistically, so long as it's not an absolute calamity, who's going to remember that in 3 4 months? You know,
mm-hmm.
if you try something and it doesn't quite materialize into something that you're taking forward, so you can take risks, especially on the indies. You know, the crowds are so forgiving and so welcoming that you can take these big swings. And it's been really nice for me to find a voice for this character now, and have him speak a little bit more. And I'm excited to take that forward into the future.
I understand that. I do understand that completely. Yeah, a big brooding like 6'5" monster. It is very difficult to think, should I actually speak or not? Because you look at early Kane, he didn't speak. He had
No.
Paul Bearer. He didn't speak for ages, and he was terrifying,
Hmm.
absolutely terrifying. And don't get me wrong, he's a great promo. He's a very good promo. But when he was early Kane, like it was that less is more sort of approach, and it worked. But I also like the way you speak. It's very direct and eloquent.
Mm.
Like, there's no wasted motion with it.
Yeah, I'm glad that comes across, because that's something I've always wanted to. Because you know, it's kind of similar to how I speak now, but I just bring the pace down. The
Mhm.
vocabulary is quite similar. I do tend to use a lot of the same sort of, like, you know, language and things like that. I think being a teacher, you can't switch it off sometimes.
That's yeah.
um, but you know, it's just about making that work. And again, in the same way that I said with Leah, pulling the best parts of herself through that character, I'm trying to pull the way that I speak, and my voice. How would Bellateus interpret my voice? And that's how I've pulled that through.
And that could be something that could be a unique selling point to you as well, because vocabulary is so key in
Mm-hmm.
any form of wrestling. Vocabulary is massively key. You look at someone like Isaiah Quinn, he doesn't talk like a normal human being, does he? He talks
No.
very, he uses very big words and it's very, very condescending. It's how he says certain things, and it's very, very well done. So I hate to compliment the guy right now. It's very well done.
And then you've got his brother Isaac, who is the complete opposite, and that works really well for him. It's wonderful.
Exactly. I've had them both on this podcast too, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, Isaac,
I think they're both
English is his
different
second
people.
language, and
Mm,
he does so well with that. So
it's
it's brilliant.
incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It is. I'm currently trying to learn
You couldn't have
Japanese. It's
two
very
more
difficult,
different
so
brothers there. You know, they do share some visual similarities, but certainly,
yeah.
they've got two very bespoke voices, and that's just a testament again to what you to what you're saying with vocabulary and things like that.
Very true. Very true. Couldn't agree more. They are definitely brothers. To those, to be honest, I can't believe people are actually trying to dispute it. I don't know.
No, I don't see it myself. There's a similarity there, but I mean, one of them's got a tash, the other one doesn't.
Exactly.
It's completely obvious to me that I don't see it.
No, never do I. Never do I. I've spoken to them both. They're both, well, one of them's a gentleman. The other one's Isaiah Quinn. Well, um, I going back to drama because one thing I wish because I regret the GCSEs I took.
Hmm.
I actually it's one thing I do actually regret. I remember taking food tech and we had to take a tech or something.
Hmm.
I took food tech. I regret it because I used to love cooking. That killed it.
Oh no!
It did. It was bad.
Oh no!
Yeah, I won't go too much.
No, I feel like that's repressed trauma that we might be bringing up there.
I wish I took drama, knowing what I love now.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
wish I took drama because back then I watched WWE. I watched wrestling, but like when it's like in high school, people ripping on you, so I kept it quiet. So, I don't know why people do, but it's a thing. So I kept it quiet, but I never knew there was an avenue for me to get into it
Hmm.
as we have now.
Yeah.
I wish I did, but I was terrified of front of crowds.
No, it's interesting that you say, about the influence of other people. I think you can go two ways. You can either shrink into yourself and sort of conform to that, or you can sort of go your own way and do what you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had a very similar background. I've struggled with self-image a lot. I still do now. But and again, just sort of pulling it back to wrestling. Wrestling's incredible because I'll never forget the first time I walked into training. People saw me straight away, and usually when I'm doing sports and things like that, a lot of the sports that I've done, people see me and they think that I'm lesser because I'm a bigger guy. I'm going to be more unfit or something like that. Whereas when I walked into the first LWF training session, people saw me and they were like, "Yes." They were like, "That's brilliant." And straight away, I wasn't less, I was more because of my size. People saw a future for me in there and they celebrated that and that was made part of the character. His size is very much a part of who he is. And
Mm.
I think that's brilliant. And I think that even if you're not a big guy, you can be anything. You can look like anything. You can be anyone. You can be tall, short, thin, fat. You can be male or female. You can look like anything. And there's a place for you in wrestling. There's a style that you'll be able to thrive in. There's a character that'll be able to work for you. Anybody can do this. I've seen people of all shapes and sizes, doing this
Yeah.
thing that we all love together, and it's absolutely brilliant that that was celebrated. And I'm so glad, in a sense, just pulling it back to the initial point, that I took drama because if I'd have cared what people said to me, if I'd have cared about what people thought, I wouldn't have done that, and I'd be in a much unhappier place now. I'd still be, you know, looking at myself and wishing I'd done things differently. I'm just glad I did it my way, and I'm so glad that people like you who maybe didn't do that and have regrets are now finding outlets to channel that energy. With wrestling, the work you do, having all of us on to give us a voice is so valuable, and we do really appreciate it. And obviously, the work you're doing with us, with the interviewing and things like that as well. I think it's wonderful that wrestling can pull in all these different types of people, all these different types of artists. You've got you who do your interviewing, musicians create music. We've got artists who do designs for us. Cameras, sound people. there's all these different people with all these different talents, and there's a place for them in wrestling to thrive. And I think that it's such a wonderful thing that everybody. It sounds cliche and it sounds very preachy, but I think it's brilliant that we all get a place to thrive and everybody's got a place in wrestling. I think that that's one of its biggest strengths, and it's something that's not discussed enough.
Yeah, that was absolutely perfectly put. I couldn't
Yeah,
agree more.
I know it's incredibly preachy. There'll be people now watching this who are rolling their eyes, but honestly, till you've lived it and till you've, you know, not had people, you know, back you throughout your life because of one thing or another, or how you look or how you are, until you go into wrestling and all of a sudden you've got a place and you know, a team and a tribe of people that support you. You won't get it and you will roll your eyes, but that's just the way it is, and it is preachy, but it's so true.
You're absolutely right. Preachy or not, sod that. It's
Yeah,
absolutely true. It's
yeah.
true. It really is. Like it really, really is. Um, it's the one thing that's kept me going. It's like wrestling has made me feel like I belong.
Mm,
Um, it's LWF has I I, I, I can't even begin to express my gratitude for everything LWF has done to help me,
yeah,
not just to get into the business, but more mentally as well, mental health wise as well. As you were saying, wrestling helps welcome anyone, and you can be a 6'5" God of War like yourself, or you
mhm.
can be someone like Jack Johnson, who's much smaller than you. Both absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and he's an absolute talent. He is an absolute talent,
He is.
and
He's
and
incredible.
you know, yeah, like you say, you know, I think some people have an image of a wrestler in their head as these sort of, you know, giants. You know, you know the
Mm.
ones you see in WWE, the ones who are mainstream celebrities now. You look at them and you see these absolute giants, and you think, oh, you've got to be over a certain height, you've got to be
Yeah.
over a certain muscle mass, and things like. Absolutely not true.
No.
Absolutely not true, because the indies prove week in, week out that anybody can do it and anybody can thrive in it.
If you get in the ring and you're safe and you are charismatic and people love to see you,
Hmm.
but why not?
Yeah,
Where's the downside? If you're safe in the ring, because that's key, that's number one.
absolutely.
If you're safe and you're charismatic, you've got a look, enjoy what you're doing and you're passionate, and it gives you a space where you can thrive and you can be yourself where no one's judging you. In fact, it's the opposite. They're pushing you to be more of what you want to be. Do it. Just do it
Yeah,
because it can be scary. It can because it can be something very new to a lot of people that they're not used to because um a lot of people in WWE you usually find in WWE in professional wrestling as a whole in the indies and
mm,
everything you find can be quite different and society can quite often shun a lot of people who are like this, who like wrestling. Sodom,
yeah,
Sodom. It's frustrating that people think they could that this is a thing. Like, oh, you like this, and why? How can you like so this or the other? No. No, if you like it, do it because you find a family that welcome you.
yeah. And I think that that is definitely still a thing that you know, there's still a people still respond that way. When I tell people I do wrestling, they go, "Oh, like the Olympic stuff," and I'm like, "No," and they're like, "Oh, that kind of wrestling," and
Mm,
you do get that pushback, but I think that's dwindling. I think there's a resurgence coming
mm.
with wrestling, especially in Britain. I think that, you know, people are getting into it again. People are starting to understand it a little bit better. You know, where um, you know, where it starts and ends as a physical feat, and you know, the fact that it does have merit and it does have skill and it does take strength and it does take stamina and all these athletic properties, but actually there's more added to it as well because you're selling a story.
Yeah,
You know, everybody in there is buying into that for those 2-3 hours that show's on. Everybody in that room is buying into it together, and it's not about how it's done. Nobody want well, some people might do, but by and large, people don't need to know how it's done. Everybody's just there for the spectacle, and that is exactly like a magician. And as we touched upon before, that's why it's exactly like magic, because everybody's buying into it together.
Exactly. Exactly. A lot of people like for the age-old thing, it's fake, right? No, it's not. It's an entertainment. It's entertainment, much like anything else. Much
Yeah.
like anything else you got to see on TV, much like a magician. It's a form of entertainment. And I mean, to put it in its purest form of magic, when you go to a TWA or a BTW or an LWF, and you look at the children who are loving it, are absolutely just in awe of what they see right there.
Mhm.
That is magic right there. Right there. It's like when I go watching, I've been watching a few women's football um, matches live, and they're really pushing for younger girls to get into football now. And you see all these children going watching the idols play live, then they meet them after the shows, get photos and autographs. And you see the look on these children's faces, seeing the people they love.
Mm.
I remember being a child going watching WWE, patting the likes of Bob Van Dam, um, Tommy Dreamer, and Matt Striker in the back. And I was a child. I'm getting goosebumps when the Undertaker's theme gong went off, and these are memories. These are core memories that shouldn't be disparaged. It should be encouraged.
Absolutely. And I think as well, that the people that sort of dismiss it, you've got to think we consume similar things to this every day of our lives. You go and switch on the TV, you watch anything that has stunt performers in, and these are people that are making things, look like they hurt, or they're making things look impressive, but they're keeping it absolutely safe. They're
Hmm.
working with the other people to make it as safe as possible whilst looking as cool as possible. That's
Exactly.
exactly what we do. The Oscars were on last night. Loads of films were celebrated for their action and choreography and stunt work. It's exactly what we do. We do it live. We don't get 2, 3, 4, 5 takes. We do it live. We do it once, and we do it for a crowd of devoted people. It's not to diminish their art by saying that it's lesser because they can do it in multiple
No,
takes, but I'm just saying that we're doing a very similar form of art there. And when people watch films, nobody sat there, when they watch a big explosion go off in the back, going, "That's fake." Of course, it's fake. Of course, it is. But you switch off and you appreciate it anyway. That's all we ask.
exactly. It's suspension of disbelief.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people seem to think in the terms of wrestling that they're trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. No, no, we're not. Like, if you're a child and you believe, let them believe. Don't tell them. But when you grow up and you're older and you realize the nature of the performing arts of professional wrestling doesn't diminish anything. You just know
Yeah.
there's no wool being poured over anyone's eyes. Kayfabe's gone.
No. I've never once had to pull the wool over anybody's eyes,
Hmm.
because I know there's an implicit trust between me and the audience there, that you pay the fee to come and watch the show, and you buy into it and you believe. And largely crowds do, children especially do, without
Mm.
question. And I don't have to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. I don't have to go out after the show's finished and roar in a child's face to sell them that it's real and it was all real anyway. They believe it for that 3 hours, and that's absolutely fine. I'll do my bit. I'll continue it on my social medias, but you can't expect me to walk around Chorley Town Centre on a Saturday roaring at people just to keep up appearances. You know, this is the Indies. I'm not on WWE. I'm not a nationwide international celebrity. I have a life, and it's a hobby that I do. And as much as being a teacher, sometimes you'd love to roar in the kids' faces. I can't do that.
That's the first thing
I've
that
got to
came
be
into my head.
professional. Exactly. And yeah, it's there's got to be a line drawn. And like you say, we're not in that era anymore where kayfabe
Mm.
is sacred. I do think that we could all do a little bit more to uphold it, particularly on socials and things like that. Because again, you can suspend the disbelief when you engage with it on socials. So I think there is perfectly fine. But if you see me in the streets or you see me leaving a venue, like I'm not gonna keep it up. I'll be honest with you. Maybe I should. Maybe that's on me, and maybe people are sat there disagreeing.
Uh,
But I'm I'll break kayfabe now. I'm Kieran from Chorley. I work like everybody else Monday to Friday. Uh, you know, I'm not Bellateus 24/7. I can't be. It would be exhausting to be in that character space 24/7. It's exhausting to do it for 3 hours in a show day. I couldn't do it 24/7, but I'll switch it on for you because I appreciate the fans. But once that show's done, I'm back to me. I can't keep that up. I would be exhausted. I would never leave the house.
that would be a spectacle to behold.
Maybe I
Hello,
need to find a common
rah!
ground of a maybe I need to find a common ground of a character I can keep up, but I couldn't live in that headspace 24/7. I don't think anybody could. It's just it would
No,
drive you insane.
oh, I couldn't do it. Nah, that couldn't be a thing. No, definitely not. I think the indies you're more excused. I think you're a lot more excused for
Oh
most.
yeah, and
And
if Triple H calls me up tomorrow, absolutely,
oh yeah,
you'll see me out on the street and I'll roar at your kid's face. I'm a WWE superstar then. But for now, it's a hobby. I train, I train weekly. I do the shows monthly, bi-monthly, whatever it is.
hmm
So, I can't keep it up 24/7. But whilst people are paying for the experience, I'll turn it on and I'll do the best I can.
yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly, exactly. And that's all people are asking for, really. Just it's a common thing on this podcast, but it's an escape.
It is an escape.
It's
It
an
absolutely is.
escape.
It's a chance to step out of me and all of my troubles and things that are going on in my life and just raw and just get it out. It's an
Yeah,
escape,
yeah.
and I don't do it often. Like we do it. I do it for a couple of hours every couple of months, and it's great. And it does its job. It does what it needs to do. I've been happier since I started. So there you go.
That's all you need.
Yeah, just raw
That's
once a
all you
month
need.
is the message I want everybody to take home. Just raw, really loudly once a month. Get it out. And if you can, do some wrestling with it too, because it's great fun. But just
Yeah.
raw once a month.
Just go for a walk like a random person in the middle of the street. Just
Pick someone.
pick someone you've
Pick
never
someone.
seen before and probably never see again. Roar in the face. Say nothing else and just walk off.
I don't endorse that. This is a joke. I'm gonna make that clear. I don't want. I don't want any sort of like public indecency offences like being alleged at me now. But oh,
An ego
Pilates told me
dispute.
to. Pilates told me to.
You could get some exposure from a podcast, to be fair.
I don't want that kind of exposure. Right, level it at Adam then. Level it at Adam. My name's out of it. Thank you.
Hey, I'm the one editing this.
You get to decide how much of this is. You could really like clip my what I'm saying up now to really drop me in it, couldn't you? Don't stiff me up. Don't stitch me up, please.
I'm so tempted. Oh my God.
That's
Throw me
tickled
that.
that, isn't
That's
it?
no. Speaking of drama and theatrics,
Pull
right,
yourself together, man.
Raw
It's just raw. Get it out.
in WF, you've been looking for someone like you, a big guy, a tough guy like you. You've been running through people, running through Clash. This is his new match. Running through Clash, beat him. Um, in fact, I
Clash
thought
handed me
it
my only
was
defeat,
it
actually.
was count out, weren't it?
Mm.
It was count
Yeah,
out.
not been
Yeah,
pinned,
I
not
was
been
wrong.
submitted. People have
Mm,
that's what I'm after. I'm after somebody that can pose me a threat there because
yeah.
I personally think that Clash didn't beat me, the ring post did.
Mm-hmm.
He just moved. That ring post's hard. It's you made it tough stuff.
Yeah, you were running there. I was
Mm,
like here. You were
yeah,
right past him.
yeah. You know, he moved and the ring post did the rest. You know, fair play. Like the win goes in his column and the loss goes in mine. But I've not been pinned and I've not been submitted. I've not been bested in that regard by anybody in the LWF. So that's definitely what I'm
No,
after. Yeah.
but you found someone in LWF Mutiny at the last Mutiny show. You found Moonbear,
Mm,
and that, for me personally, could possibly be my favorite match of yours in terms of story,
mm,
in terms of pure storytelling. Two big guys going at it who couldn't be any more different, but you trying to bring the inner monster out of him. And I thought I loved that. I was very much drawn into that story.
mm. Yeah, I mean, you know, like when Moonbear sort of first became Moonbear, we saw him emerge, and he was a very different person. I think you saw
Mm,
that fight and that energy, and then the Children of the Moon sort of took that away from us and transformed him into this hippie. And you know, I don't really get it if I'm honest. I think that that's a waste of potential. You know, I think that Moonbear's just you know, I don't even think he seems happy because I don't think he's got much agency there. I don't think it's himself. He presented himself to us as somebody completely new, and it was only through Children of the Moon's influence that he changed into Moonbear. And so I think I was just trying to draw that back out, and I certainly succeeded.
you did. You did. He went quite mental. It was a disqualification, I believe.
It was, and you know, it was a really weird moment as I was there on that canvas because he really did a number on me. You know, I was down. You know, and I remember laughing and smiling because I got exactly what I wanted out of him, and it
Mm,
hurt to laugh, but you know, it was just such a joyous occasion because in that regard, I had won. You know, that's
mm,
exactly what I wanted, and I did win by disqualification. You know, he shoved the referee. He really showed his true colours there, and I, you know, in that regard, I'd won in every way I wanted to. But unfortunately, he'd beaten me so much that I couldn't stop Children of the Moon from coming and you know putting their influence back on him again, and I
mm.
lost it as quick as I lost him as quick as I got him back.
Yeah, yeah, you did. And he put his hands on poor LK as well. LK, why can't you put
I
your hands
know.
on LK? She's a sweetheart. Oh, I'm a Moonbear fan, but no,
No,
no.
I mean sometimes the officials, you know, they're not my biggest friends, but you know, I've never put my hands on an official. That's it's not in my code of honor. You know, a lot of people, you can like me or loathe me, but I have a code of honor and I do stick by that. And you know that's something I've never stooped to. And certainly when he did, I think that that just showed, you know, the depths of anger within him. I think that with time, you know, he could be just a force of nature, a bit like me. He wouldn't have to resort to that, but I think that that's just slipped through you know months of having himself repressed and all that frustration.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you might
I
be
don't
onto
endorse
something.
shoving an official. I certainly don't think that
Mm-mm,
that was part of my plan, but it
mm-mm.
got him disqualified. It got him off me, and you know, I broke him. I did what I
Yeah,
came to do.
you did. You did indeed. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. We got a glimpse into the looking glass, I think.
Definitely, and what could be done once can be replicated, you know. Whether it's me or whether it's somebody else, somebody will get that out of him again. And I only hope that they're ready for it because I was only just about ready for it.
Yeah, I've seen the monster. I've seen that side of him. I don't know if many people have, but I have seen that side of him, and you're absolutely right. I think he is a force to be reckoned with. Definitely someone you should be careful around, for
Definitely, I
sure.
think you know Ryan Lowe at the moment's pushing his buttons, and you know
Mm,
I think a lot of people at first glance would think somebody like Ryan Lowe and I would get along because we both want to wind up Moonbear as much as possible. But Ryan Lowe, he's a lot of waffle. I know you had him on for your 50th episode, and I can only apologise for that.
I didn't want him on. He
No.
somehow made it on.
Mm.
Oh,
I can only apologise. Your
mm,
sort of special occasion there was kind of hijacked by him, and I think that what we saw there was he talks a lot, and can he draw that out of Moonbear? I don't know if he has. I don't know if Ryan Lowe has enough to draw that out of Moonbear. I don't know if talking is the way to get him to do it. I don't know if Moonbear responds to talking. I don't know if Ryan Lowe's going to be the one to break him, but he's got to be careful. He's definitely treading on ice because I've put the cracks there in the facade, and
mm.
he's ready to break through at any moment, I'm sure.
No, I agree. I couldn't agree more. You can say anything you want about Ryan, though, and I agree, unless it's good, and then I disagree.
He's certainly got some high opinions of himself. He's certainly got some
Mm.
barbed words to say to other people. Um, but I think that the Lancashire Riot and his appearances so far have just shown that words can only take you so far. I think it's time for him to show us what he's got and put those words to action.
Very true. Very true indeed. Speaking of the Lancashire Riot, it was just the show just gone from IWF, and what a show it was as well. The Riot was phenomenal. I mean, the opener between David Getski and Tony Wright was a great match, followed by a win from Lucy Sky, and then a disqualification with Lana Austin and Mel Price. Austin, 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 Austin. Don't know where I went then. And then the Lancashire Riot was phenomenal. It it blew the roof off the place. I think it was very, very well done. And Clash, of all people, was the one to gather the troops and to try and get you out.
Yeah, I think he's faced me once before, and as we've already discussed, he used the ring post to his advantage. He's a very I can say what I want about Clash, but his ring IQ is incredible, and I think it's improving all the time. I think he's incredibly smart, and he knows how to use his environment to his advantage, as we've seen. And the Lancashire Riot was no different. A lot of people in there were focusing on their own grievances, and that allowed me to pick off the Children of the Moon. But then obviously Aiton Steen and Clash come in, and all of a sudden, Clash gets everybody involved on me, and we all saw what happened next. And I'm not proud of it, but I can take some peace from the fact that everybody had to be involved to get me out.
Mm.
It's not an easy task to overcome myself, and I do remember that. I will remember that it was Clash. That's certainly fresh in my memory, and there will be repercussions. Yeah.
Okay, interesting stuff. He Clash actually was my pick to actually win the entire riot personally.
That's a shame.
I know his brother
No, it's a
won
shame that you'd pick him, when I'm there, but it's a
it.
shame that you'd say that to me right now, but okay.
And that's our podcast come to an end. I might be stood at the back at the next RWS show.
I'll,
Uh,
uh, I'll I'll try and put that to the back of my mind. I'm dealing with Clash at the moment. I can't have too many people on my list. You're okay for now.
thank you, much appreciated. It did. It was a lot of people. It did take a lot of people to actually manage to eliminate you, which is a lot. And you did, when they started attacking you, you did explode and launch them all over the place, all over the ring. So you were very impressive for the time you're in there. You got a few key eliminations, getting a
Mm.
few up on the Children of the Moon as well, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, harkening back to Moonbear, we weren't fortunate enough to come face to face in that Lancashire Riot, but I hope he knows who
That's a
got rid of his
shame.
brothers there. I hope he knows.
It's a shame that that's one thing I was thinking I'd have liked to see. I'd have liked to see a stir down between the two of you.
Yeah.
It's something that stayed ever since that Mutiny show. It's something that stayed up here.
You see, but I've got to be a professional when I step in
Mm,
there. I think too many people got drawn into sniping at people, like the Lost Lancadors and Nick Cutter and Chris Stone.
yeah.
They're at each other's throats a lot, and lo and behold, none of them won. I
Hmm.
think the The man who took it all, Aiton Steen, he was able to sort of separate his own personal grievances with just getting the job done. And I think if I'd have seen Moonbear in there, I'd have had to switch that off and just get the job done. By all means, I might attack Moonbear. He's a sizable threat. He's a big guy. He's strong. Could do a lot of damage in there. I'd have to control that, but certainly that wouldn't be at the expense of me focusing on other people.
Mm.
If I was to come into contact with Moonbear, there, you've got to put those things to one side. There's there's a lot of other men, there's a lot of other bodies in that ring. Even some Lily Winter entered. There's
Yeah,
there's there's a lot of people in that ring, and you've got to be ready for anything. That just shows that it was full of shocks, full of surprises, and you've got to be ready for anything. You cannot focus on your own personal grievances. They've got to be put to one side if you're going to have any shot at winning.
couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree
Clash
more.
Clash understands this really well too. I'm sure there's people in that ring he'd love to punch about that ring, but he had to work together with them to get me out, and
Yeah,
then he could focus on them. He understands that very well. Aiton Steen understands that very well. That's why Aiton won.
yeah,
The people that performed well in that Lancashire riot were the people that could put that to one side.
yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You never know who's gonna come through that curtain. As you said, Lily Winter, you never know. So it's about laser focus. And none of us knew because another giant in WF is Troy Ryan,
Mm.
someone else who is beef on beef. He's a very, very muscly man. And for him to get walloped in the peanuts by Lily Winter and eliminated was a shock, a very big shock. It
And
took me,
he'd been there right from the start, and
yeah,
this is a testament to what I was saying as well about when you're backstage, you're preparing on your own thing. You don't have time to be tracking who's going out there, who's still in, who's coming back. You just
mm,
go out there and whoever's in that ring, you deal with. And me and Troy Ryan, last October, we had a bout together. So there's some history there, but I put that to one side. I got a bit over on Troy, but that's because he's a huge threat, as you say. He's got to be dealt
mm,
with. It
mm,
certainly wasn't anything to do with our history. And he's tag team champion at the moment with Synergy. He has a lot of people that he could focus on, but he had to get the job done and focus on what he could. And I think that Lily Winter was one surprise too many, and she got one over on him, as we saw.
yeah, yeah. I don't think he knew how to make what to make of the situation, and then seconds later he's on the mat.
Definitely, and I think that's he's dealt so well with so many curveballs throughout that riot. He's outlasted people. He's stayed fresh. He done really, really well. And like I say, I think that was one surprise too many. It was something that not even the tag team champ could predict, and we saw a big shock there. Absolutely,
Mm. Is there respect there between you and Troy?
definitely.
Mm.
I think once I step into the ring, respect has also got to be put to one side. There's a job to do. But I respect him. He's tag team champion for good reason. And he's he's a champion in his own right too. He holds that tag team belt, but he is champion in his own right. And as well, the things he does for the LWF wider, he is in charge of it. He's running the academy on a Thursday at the
Yeah,
moment, and the knowledge he imparts onto us is brilliant. So even though we've stepped into the ring together and we've got history there, there is always respect with me and Troy. Absolutely.
of course, of course, and I can definitely. It wouldn't surprise me if he said the exact same thing to you.
I
That's
I I would be shocked if you could find anybody that's worked at the LWF that would answer differently to that question. I really would.
what for Troy.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if
Yeah,
you could find me anybody that says that they do not have even a shred of respect for him. Even someone like Ryan Lowe, who thinks of himself above anybody else, I would be genuinely shocked if he was to say he didn't even have a shred of respect for our tag team champion.
couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I Troy was one of the earlier people I had on my podcast, and yeah, he's a fountain of wisdom, and the man has done strong man. There's what's the word? Dedication there. He's just a man's gone blank, and I'm the interviewer.
He's a consummate professional.
That's
in
the one.
everything he does.
Yeah,
His work
he's
rate outside
incredible.
of the ring, his
Mm.
work rate in the ring, his work
Dedicated. That's
rate,
the one.
imparting that knowledge onto other people. He doesn't stop. He's an absolute workhorse. And if
Yeah.
you cut him open, he'd bleed wrestling.
Yeah.
He absolutely lives for the spectacle of it all. And he's just a consummate professional from top to bottom. He's absolutely brilliant.
Hmm. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. The dedication of the man is
Yep.
insane.
Yep.
I would love to have a quarter of the dedication he has. If anyone had at least a quarter of dedication he has, they've they'd be incredible. They really
Yeah.
are. He's phenomenal. He's
Yeah,
phenomenal.
and I think as well when you pair that with Jack Roberts, when you pair that with Anderson Daniels,
Yeah.
they're people that can match that dedication, can match
Hmm.
that talent, can match that work ethic. And when you put three workhorses like that together in synergy, it's going to be hard for anybody to uproot them as tag team champions, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. It doesn't surprise you when you look at them and say they're the tag team champs. Then, oh yeah, even if people haven't watched wrestling, if they're there for the first
Yeah,
time, you look at them
yeah,
and
yeah.
think, oh well, yeah, they are the tag team champions. Yeah, sure, yeah, because
They've put the
it
work
makes
in.
sense. It
They've put
makes
the work
sense.
in throughout the
Mm.
years to the point where now they just sort of exude that energy and
Hmm.
they look the part to anybody. Uh, you know, Certainly, yeah, I completely agree, and I think that it's an unenviable task for any tag team that are going to try and take those titles out of their hands.
Yeah, yeah, it should definitely. I mean, it should definitely be interesting.
Hmm.
Definitely, they're very, very, very charismatic, very fun to watch. Three very different personalities as well,
Mm.
which helps a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, yeah. I think if you got two of the same, you've then got you're doubling up on your strengths, but you're doubling up on your weaknesses too.
Mm.
And they're a very well-rounded team, and they cover all their bases very well.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Moving from moving from one promotion to another, I did mention them a
Mhm.
little bit earlier. TWA at Christmas with the Invitational, and I was looking back because it is on Jack Barron's own YouTube channel. You wrestled an invisible horse.
Yes, we all did. Everybody
Hmm.
in that invitational had a skirmish with Passing Wind, the Invisible Horse.
Yeah.
And obviously that was my first time with TWA. I was invited very late to that. It was an invitational. I was invited very late the day of. I was
Oh.
invited to take part in that, and I was very excited to do so. And when it came out and everybody acted a certain way, this horse, I didn't know what to make of it. We don't have anything like that in the LWF where I've wrestled previously. Um, and I think I was a little bit skeptical, but it has one hell of a kick on it, and I can
Oh.
attest to that now. And I won't be making that mistake again.
One thing I did enjoy was watching Passing Wind, the Invisible Horse, absolutely beat the bejesus out of Iron. No, that was fun.
Yeah, the latest show, that's right. Yeah,
Mm.
at the
Enjoyed
Valentine's
that.
show.
I
Yeah,
enjoyed
it's
that.
always good. I saw him crawl back from behind the curtain. I was on after that
Mm.
match, and I saw him crawl back through the curtain, literally crawl back on all fours, and that was a sight to behold. That was a joy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He's not making any friends, is he, Ryan?
No, I think that a lot of people in wrestling think that um, all of these people that are booed by the audience will somehow get behind stage and bond over that together. No, I don't really understand why the crowd boo me sometimes, but I can certainly understand why they boo Ryan Lowe.
Mm.
And we will not be making friends. There's nothing to bond over there. There's nothing between us that's alike. I think that he's as insufferable as anybody else does.
I'm glad we can bond over that
Mm,
because I very much agree. The man
yeah, that's good.
interfered and ruined my special episode, so you can sod off for I like her. I will give him the loudest of boos every time
Mm.
I'm at a show.
Oh, we
Every time.
do, but we do backstage too. He's getting ready to go
Literally.
out, and I hear him rehearsing his lines, his little catchphrases.
Mm.
The ace that runs the place, Mister Indie Wrestling, whatever new one
Mm.
he's come up. He seems to add a catchphrase every time I see him.
Mm.
I think he must be on about 5 or 6 different catchphrases now. Most people only need one. He seems
Yeah.
to think he needs 5 or 6. Um,
I think that's insecurity, to be honest.
Certainly, it's got
Mm,
something like that. Yeah, he's definitely
yeah.
compensating for something.
Well, we'll leave that one there. Oh, Ryan. Oh,
Okay.
Ryan.
He'll kill me, but only with the microphone. He'll never once touch me.
No, no, he
No,
won't.
no, he
No,
won't.
I felt that microphone. Let's not clip that on its own.
No.
Um, he hit me with it. Did that one get a second later?
Yeah, you broke me with that one. I need to pull myself together. Okay. Mm.
We've both been broken. Uh,
So, Adam, you were saying you felt the microphone.
yeah, you could hear everything. Yeah, even myself, he can't hit an interviewer in the face. He had to hit me, yeah, back of the head when my back was turned with the microphone because he's that much of a coward.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're an interviewer, you've been to a couple of training sessions, so you have some knowledge there. But, certainly it does show how much of a coward he is and how insecure he is, possibly in his own ability. You take that microphone away, I think you take away a lot of his power.
Mm.
I think, we were talking about strengths and weaknesses before with the tag team and how they cover all of their weaknesses. I think Ryan Lowe's got a pretty glaring one there. If you take his voice away, you take his sound away. He's one bad case of bronchitis away from being buried. Like if he loses his voice, kid's gone. You'll never hear from him again, literally and metaphorically.
Ooh.
Honestly, when the winter months come, he's going to wrap himself in bubble wrap because without that voice, it's if we had a power cut at one of our venues and the sound system went down, I don't know what Ryan Lowe would do. I think he'd sit himself in a corner and cry because without that microphone, he shrinks. He really does.
He'll run. He'll run away. We won't see from him. And it'll be the best power cut England has ever had.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be beautiful.
Yep. Be the
The
best one.
sound of silence. Oh.
Glorious.
um, yeah, do you in, are you planning on doing more TWA shows? Because that's TWA is one of my it's very different 2017, but also very fun.
I loved it. It's some of the most fun I've ever had in wrestling. I still love wrestling, with
Hmm.
the LWF and things like that. But TWA sort of ignited a whole different love of wrestling.
Mm,
It's a different crowd, it's a different vibe.
yeah,
And thinking how I'd sort of fit in there, with that, it was quite daunting. But actually, everything sort of plays off me really quite well. I'm a generally kind of serious guy, and so everything that happens there, bouncing off of me, it just makes it ten times better for the crowd. And I think I really fit there. I think I've got a purpose there. I think I've got a future there. And if they'd have me back, I'd absolutely love to because I've enjoyed both opportunities I've been given there so much. And I'd do anything to go back and entertain that crowd because what a crowd.
hmm yeah. If there's ever a time we can make it to a TWA show with her, and
Yeah,
it'll take a lot for us not to be there. It
yeah,
really
it's
will.
it's some of the most fun you can have.
It
Not
really
even in
is.
wrestling, it's just some of the most fun you can have with some free time on a weekend.
Yeah,
So if you haven't been down to a TWA show and you're in the sort of the northwest area, get down to Darwin and get to one of those shows because they've got entertainment down to a fine art. They've
yeah,
bottled it. They've
yeah.
bottled that essence of entertainment.
Jenny, Jenny B, Jack Barron, it's their promotion, and it's just they know, having had them both on my podcast, having spoken to them both a lot, they just get it. They get it. They understand wrestling. They know how to have fun, and they don't take it too seriously. And I think that's one of the strengths of anyone who is wanting to get into wrestling or trying to find themselves. I know this might sound preachy and pretentious to someone who isn't in the business, but from a fan's perspective, not taking yourself too seriously and allowing yourself to open up to that humor and make yourself vulnerable to the fans ridiculing you and then bouncing off that and not taking it too seriously is one of the finer arts you can have in this business because it's so fun to just go
Yeah.
back and forth.
Definitely, and yeah, it's all in good spirits too. You know, we spoke a
Mm,
little bit earlier about people laughing at you,
mm,
and there's two very different ways in which people can laugh at you. There's the way, which we sort of experienced at school, and there's
mm,
the way that TWA laugh at you, where you're very much in on the joke, and they respect the fact that you're making them laugh, and they really respond to that, and it's so wonderful in a way that you can let loose and try. We were talking before about having the ability to try new things. I could try anything there. I could change my gimmick completely on its head and try
mm.
anything there, and that crowd would lap it up and give it a fair shot. And I think that that's wonderful. And I cannot speak more highly of TWA. And if they'll have me back, I'll be there in a heartbeat. I really do enjoy those shows.
Exactly. Yeah, I do apologize.
You're okay.
One of the biggest, well, no, the biggest shock, the biggest culture shock for me about TWA is that I'd say the majority of BTW shows in Bolton, and Robert in Bolton is terrifying.
Hmm.
Makes children cry. He's genuinely scary. He is terrifying. TWA, they love him. They absolutely love him. And when he came out as this gentle giant, I was like, that's the same guy.
I mean, I've
It's
I've I've
amazing.
I've grappled with Rarebit at TWA at the Christmas Invitational. I wouldn't say Gentle Giant's quite the correct phrase to use. I see where you're coming from, but having been there and actually grappled with the Rarebit, I definitely not a Gentle Giant all the time, shall we say?
Well, yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, maybe in soul, but
Mm.
not in himself.
I think that's how the crowd have adopted him and how the crowd embrace him.
Mm,
Um, but certainly, I haven't embraced him as such. I don't think he's a gentle giant at all. I think that is a man with power, and he
mm,
hurts.
mm. I can imagine. Yeah, I
Mm.
wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of Rabbit. I would love to see. I think I've mentioned this to a few people actually. I'd love to see you at BTW with the Rabbit, the terrifyingly scary Rabbit and
Mm.
Bellateus. That's a match
I
I
think it's
would be very
two
happy to see.
two very different types of monster meat in there, isn't
I
it?
agree. I
Obviously,
agree.
Rarebit is a monster in his own right, but he's a very different monster to I am.
Mm,
I I sort of have this code of honor and these ethics, but I'll do whatever it takes to sort of win. And but I abide by a very strict rules that I set for myself. But I'm brutal and I'm powerful and I'll do whatever it takes to win and get the victory. In the same way, the Rarebit will do anything it takes to win, but that is a depraved monster. He will stoop to any lengths. He has no morals. He has no code of ethics. He'll do whatever it takes to win in a very very different way, and I think that poses a really interesting matchup. And yeah, call me. Let's get it in.
yes. Yes, massively. Yes. It's something I'd be well down for.
Mm.
Yeah. I watched him a few months ago. I was talking like was sat with my mum. I was like in my head I was there going, yeah, Bellatrix, Burbot. Yes. I was just picturing it. It's like it's something I want to see.
I watch him from afar and other promo. I've seen him at TWA. I've worked with him at TWA, and as you
Mm,
say, he's a very different beast there. A
it
beast all the
is.
same, but he's a very different beast. But
Hmm.
I watch him from afar at these other promotions, and I see, and I want a piece of that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
I I wanna go at that definitely.
I think that's a collision waiting to happen.
I think there's mileage in it too. As we're saying,
Mm.
similar in so many ways, but different in many more. And I think that's it's a really interesting proposition.
Yeah. Massive. Couldn't agree
I'm
more.
game. I'm absolutely game.
So am I. To watch, not to be involved. To watch.
You can make it a triple threat if you want.
I'm good, thank you. think I'll pass. I'm happy on the seats on the side, maybe on the back row. um, do you, do you have anything you'd like to plug? Any socials or upcoming events?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'd like to plug my Facebook page, Bellateus Wrestler, my TikTok, search for Bellateus. I've got lots of clips on there. It's all new to me. I'm still getting things up there all the
Oh,
time.
same.
Instagram at Bellateus. And yeah, follow the LWF and TWA, please. And events. We've got Slamaganza coming up at the LWF. Definitely get your tickets for that biggest show of our calendar year.
Mm.
So please get yourselves down to that and enjoy some good family friendly wrestling.
But that is it. It's been an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. If we ever want to do this again, please call me and don't make me wait so long next time.
I won't, I promise.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
All right, take
thank you.
care.
See you next time.